This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking about Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Finally, it's here. We're going to be talking about, so many things. The characters, the plot, some of the cinematography, Star Wars, the universe, the essence of it, what everybody thinks, and much more. So stay tuned!
Sound a little bit excited.
I've been waiting for this film
for 2 years.
For 2 years. I'm really excited about this film. And I'm really excited about talking about it. But before we do, let's give the audience a spoiler warning.
We got out of this movie last night. We know last night was opening night, and today we're recording an episode on it. So a lot of y'all may not have seen it yet. Be able to have holiday obligations, anything like that. So if you haven't seen it, do not listen to this episode.
And once you have seen it, put this episode on the way home and listen to us talk about it, and then let that spill some discussion between you and your friends and family.
Exactly, but do not listen beyond this point. Yeah. Abandon hope, all who enter... What is that? Abandon hope?
All who has entered the CNC Geekcast realm.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but now that we got that out of the way, Paul, your initial thoughts.
My initial thoughts, as soon as the film ended, I was like, I knew the film was going to be polarizing. Mm-hmm. And... boy, is it ever.
It is polarizing. It definitely is that. Now, the tone was set early in this film because at the end of The Force Awakens, it has so many questions. Who's Snoke? Who's Rey's parents? What's going to happen now? I mean, what's Luke's going to do? I mean, he's going to train... Is he going to train Rey? He has to train Rey. And at the beginning of this film, once we have Rey's story, Luke was given the lightsaber, and the first thing he does is toss it behind him.
Yep. That really helps set the tone earlier. This isn't... the Star Wars we're used to. This isn't the Star Wars that we're expecting to see. And more throughout the movie that happens. Like, everybody had all these theories about Snoke. Like, who is Snoke? What does he want? How did he rise to power?
How is he more powerful than Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine combined?
Yeah, how is he that powerful? And the movie's like, well, who cares?
Yeah, because they kill him off.
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers. We already did that, but he killed him off. And then Rey Pounding goes, who's Rey Pound? It must be, she must be Kenobi's child, must be Han Solo, must be Luke's. Or maybe she is was created by the Force, like Anakin. Nope. She is nothing more than a child of two drunken parents who sold her for liquor money.
Yep, basically.
I'm like, okay, I see what she's doing here. And this film really does a very good job of basically telling the audience that, look guys, I understand you love Star Wars, there's a specific formula, and Episode 7 was Disney and Lucasfilm saying, we understand that formula, and we can recreate it, but at the same time, the director of this film comes along and saying, yes, but we're going to have all these new films coming out. The director is heading a new trilogy, and he can't be restrained, and Lucasfilms can't be restrained in a box that has been Star Wars for 40 years. In order to create new film, we have to expand the box. We have to tear those boxes down and allow more creative freedom.
Well, I know some of your friends didn't like the nature of this film, with it throwing away some of the established canon and kind of throwing some fan theories in the trash. What did you think of that?
Of them throwing away? Yeah. To be honest, I thought it was really great because, YouTubers make these YouTube channels, and a lot of them are trying to do it for clicks and trying to get it for, subscribers, and they want to, have their opinions like we are. We don't want their opinions out there, and they're using theories as that way of getting, recognized and hearing their opinions. But I love how the film is like, we're tired of this. It's like you're making all these protections. Nope, forget it. Doesn't mean anything. And I like that because it basically, like we said, is showing to the audience that we don't care what you think about this film. We are going to go down a new path because it's needed. We're going to have a new series of film. We're going to have an own expanded universe. We can't be restrained anymore. And that's, I think, what the biggest thing this film is trying to get across to the audience. And you keep hearing this echoing when Luke says the Jedi have to end. And you see him passing away. You hear Kylo Ren saying, let the past die. It needs to die. And you hear all this stuff echoing. I mean, he killed Snoke because, he was the Sith Lord. Well, that's him killing off, that's a movie killing off the Sith. And then Luke dying was killing off the Jedi. So that entire dynamic and stuff is now dying off, and it's different now. It's new.
I really enjoyed that as well. This is probably, maybe even my favorite Star Wars film because of that.
Really?
Yes, I would rank this film incredibly highly. Just because it didn't work for me a little bit in the beginning. I got bored, admittedly. Mm-hmm. It was edited choppily. There was some subplots I didn't really care about, like the whole thing on the casino.
I have thoughts on that, but we'll get to that later.
Okay, I'll let you talk about that. But then the last half of this movie was perfect. I would say it started when she landed on the ship. Mm-hmm. Everything from then on, seeing her with Kylo, seeing her fight the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah, the Snoke, and take it on Snoke, yeah.
Yeah. It was perfect. And then the battle on the Salt Planet was awesome as well.
Well, speaking of battle, the opening battle to this movie was really good too.
No, it did. And also did a good job of establishing characters. Because we seen Poe in Force Awakens, and he was a hero. He was meant to be the hotshot pilot, a hero. And we saw him in this kind of be heroic when he really shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, he was ordered. The entire idea was that the bombers and the fighters were there to be as just basically take some pot shots at the Imperial Dreadnought or the First Order Dreadnought. Just take a pot shot. That's all.
Just where the cruiser could get away, and then they would all.
I mean, yeah, and then just bomb it, destroy the Dreadnought, and then once you're done, get out. Or not bomb the cruiser, just disable it and distract it. Once it's done, decide. But Poe was like, we have this chance to take out a Dreadnought, and decides to order his squadron toward it, and in the process, killed all of these characters. And the one thing I liked about that was the Princess Leia, or General Leia, was like, even though that she was the general of these soldiers, she still was like, all these people are dying. Don't send soldiers to die simply because you can win a big victory. You got to pick your battles. And that's the biggest lesson that.
And we saw Poe learning. We saw Poe learning that throughout the film.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a sequence in this film. Well, Rey had her own story on the planet that she left, but then you had all these other characters on the ship, and they were trying to get away. And what we realized is they jumped into hyperspace away from their base originally. Well, we realized that the First Order could track them through hyperspace. So, and this was like a kind of a scene from Battlestar, plotline for Battlestar Galactica, wasn't it?
It was the most recent series of Battlestar Galactica. I'm trying to say the new one and not the old one. Mm-hmm. He had a series where anytime the Battlestar would jump into hyperspace, the Cylon would follow along behind them for in like 20 minutes, and that just went on for days, and they couldn't sleep and everything like that. They always had to be on alert, and the movie actually really reminded me of that, with seeing the Star Destroyers just following the cruiser and just constantly barraging it.
Yeah. Now that brings a small point about naval battle in general. A lot of people may ask, well, why didn't the cruiser speed up with the Republic cruiser? And I thought to myself the same thing, but then I realized, well, that's kind of how it works. I mean, once someone gets a head start, it's very difficult to catch up, because for every moment you catch up, they're gonna go even further. So it's not like they could go faster than the cruiser, because they may have gone faster too.
Yeah.
So that's really how speed in this thing works. But with this film, you had Finn, Poe, and what was it?
Rose,
yeah. Well, we seen Rose. We saw a new character in Rose. And in this scene, what we discovered was actually interesting, because Kylo Ren gets a ship, gets his own fleet, and he starts attacking the mothership and was about to destroy the bridge, but realizes Leia was there. Mm-hmm. And he didn't fire, but his wingmen did fire and blew the bridge off. Well, that sends Leia into space, and that comes up with a scene in itself that's was really hard to watch at first.
No, it was. Because we all went into this movie, I understand partly the reason, I'm kind of providing some context to why the scene's controversial. We all went into this movie knowing it was Leia's last appearance. This was the last film she appeared in. So we expected her to receive a send-off at some point, a death.
Yeah.
So when that happens, we see her flying ship looking all, frankly, angelic, because you can see the way she's lit and everything. She looks frankly angelic. And then all of a sudden she uses her force powers, because as established in Return of the Jedi, she does have force power. She does have knowledge of the force. She uses that to save herself. Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think of that scene in general? Do you think it was corny or cheesy, or what was your thoughts on it? Because I'm not sure about that yet.
I think it worked, truthfully.
Yeah, okay.
Because this, you have to think about it. Carrie Fisher's character is not CG at all in this film. Everything that she is was actually filmed by her. So this is the film that they wanted us to have. Yeah. So us thinking all that, well, she should have died there, it coming from the knowledge that, well, this is her last appearance. She deserves that good send-off.
Well, the issue I have with that is that we're projecting that onto it. She already filmed all her scenes before she passed away.
Yeah, so we're recontextualizing those scenes.
Yeah, we think that, in post-production they're going to turn it off. No. The filmmaker never intended her to die in this movie. Mm-hmm. The only one who was intended to survive was Princess Leia. Mm-hmm. We see this with Luke does die in this film too. Han dies, Luke dies, but she's the only one who's left alive.
And then she would presumably have died next film.
Well, maybe. We don't know.
I'm just saying presumably, like Han, Luke, and...
Yeah, exactly.
Leia.
But now she's probably is going to die to explain why she's not there. Or maybe she's like, she retired or something.
I imagine there's going to be an accident off screen or something, and the next movie opens with a funeral for her.
Yeah.
That's my... this movie, I understand that we're talking a lot about fan theories and everything like that, but... That's kind of my theory for episode 9.
Okay, alright, cool. So, what do you think of Poe's character arc? Because at one point there was another controversial scene that... There's a lot of controversies here in this film.
There really are. That's why I open with this movie, that this movie is...
Polarizing.
Thank you.
This movie is polarizing, because there's one scene where Poe disobeys orders, and then Princess Leia is in the medical center being unconscious, so that means that... someone else's a new general comes up, and Admiral, and basically just keeps Poe out of the dark about their plans. And we realize that they had a plan, a very good plan, but Poe was informed. A lot of people was like, well, why don't you tell Poe this plan? He threw a mutiny, for crying out loud. If he was only told the plan, then the mutiny would never happen, and everything would be fine. And I have a lot of issues with that. The first thing is, that's not how Navy hierarchy works.
Well, and it's not only that. You have to think about it from a viewer. Yeah. You have information that the characters don't have as a viewer. We are
omnipotent.
No, that's all powerful. Omniscient.
Omnipotent. Yeah, we have inside information.
Yeah, exactly. Information that the characters may not know, so they have to make the decision. And based on Poe's actions at the beginning of the film, frankly, I wouldn't trust him either if I was an admiral.
Exactly. I mean, you're given this detailed plan, and why don't you tell me? Because we trusted you. And you betrayed that trust.
Because he got demoted. He was major and he got demoted to captain.
Yeah. And that was the biggest thing. So, of course, you're not going to tell him the plan. And that's what his character arc. He was trying to learn how to be a leader. You just can't sit there and do whatever your emotions,
And that did get the payoff at the end of the film. Yeah. When he leads the people out of the cave instead of trying to be the hero.
Exactly.
Because that's
Well, also during the attack, when he was going through, he told everybody to retreat. It was Finn that tried to take the action to suicide, the attempt to kill himself.
Yeah.
So we saw that arc, but
now Finn's character arc that did bother me. On the other hand,
okay,
because in the first movie was all about Finn learning to stand up for what was right. Mm-hmm. That was his whole arc in the first movie, and then this movie, as soon as things get hard, you see him jumping in the skate pod. I'm like, really, Finn? Really?
Well, I somewhat disagree with that because people assume that he was just jumping ship. He wasn't. He was trying to get Rey, and something tells me that he was going to get Rey and he was going to bring Rey back.
He was going to get Rey, and they were going to go after another planet away from the first one.
We don't know that. Do we know that?
Presumably, presumably.
Presuming that he was going to get Rey.
Yeah, because he thought it was hopeless for the rebellion at that point.
Well, I mean, he wanted. I got the impression that he wanted to get Rey back. And they would take them in the Falcon and bring... Because his entire thing was, how is Rey going to get back? How is Rey going to get back? And then when they realized they were going to die, she was like, well, Rey's not going to know anything. I got to go and get Rey to make sure that she's safe. So I do think that it wasn't a selfish reason. He wasn't jumping ship because he was just scared. He was still concerned about Rey, but at the same time...
That doesn't excuse his actions, though.
Not saying it does. But I think that the reasons are different than what we are projecting again.
I mean, they may be different, but I don't know. Because I loved Finn in Force Awakens, but I liked him a little bit less in this because of that. It just didn't resonate with me.
Well, at the same time, to be fair though, a lot of these characters, this movie does show that all these characters are flawed. I mean, that's what the entire point of that line is. The line that Luke Skywalker says, "You cannot glorify your heroes." That's what we're doing with Finn, and that's what we're doing with Poe. We're glorifying these heroes, and now they're like, oh wait, they're doing things that are not heroish, and now we're upset at that, and that's the entire point of the movie.
Shut up.
But getting now to the heart of the film, what do you think of Luke, Rey, and Kylo Ren? And their characters.
Kylo Ren. I loved every second of Kylo Ren in this film. Mm-hmm. He did not have a moment I did not like.
Yeah.
Because remember, at the end of The Force Awakens, everybody was wondering, Does Kylo still have good in him? Kylo can be redeemed. And then this movie comes along, and you're seeing Kylo still struggling with that internal conflict, probably even more so than before.
Yeah.
And then you see him destroy his mask, symbolizing that he's not going to be another Vader. You see him kill Snoke, which
was completely unexpected, because we have all these theories, we have all these questions, and the movie's like, don't care.
But I just loved it from a thematic standpoint, because just frankly, Kylo is a significantly more interesting villain than Snoke.
Yes.
He's angsty, he's conflicted, he's angry, he has all this pent-up rage, and we understand why, as opposed to Snoke, who we'd have to learn all about and everything like that. So I can understand why Rian Johnson made the decision he did.
Yeah. And another thing is, I was watching the Nostalgia Critic talking to his brother about it, and he mentioned that in episode 1 documentary, George Lucas said that he wanted these scenes to rhyme with one another. Well, this movie wasn't a direct copy of Empire Strikes Back, but there's a lot of rhyming involved. So when you think about that idea of rhyming...
I watched that same video.
Well, there you go. When you think about the idea of rhyming, when you think of... So Darth Vader killed his master in Return of the Jedi, but he did it for good reasons. Kylo Ren killed his master, but for the wrong reasons. Yeah. So those two scenes are parallel in the way that they rhyme, but they go off into different directions, which I thought was really interesting too. And that's in that context of the two scenes. Yeah. And I did also like how Rey and Kylo Ren had that conversation going with one another through the Force.
No, I did too. And I did enjoy that reveal when it was revealed that Snoke was kind of the one.
Yeah, because we were wondering, is the Force doing this? Is the Force trying to say something?
He was like, because neither one of them are powerful enough to do this on their own. Yeah. And especially considering neither one of them probably know how to do it. Even.
Yeah, true, yeah. Then.
There was a scene I enjoyed in this, because I actually found it funny. Okay. It was the one where Kylo had his shirt off.
All right.
And he was just like, well, I know she's calling. I want to leave my shirt off.
And I love it. Yeah, I don't know. And the Rey is like, please put your shirt on. And then I don't know about the.
And I like that he just pretended to ignore it. Like, well, I didn't hear you. Like, and then now I'm just gonna go lift weights with my shirt off.
Yep, yeah, that's it. This is what happens when you're with the dark side. Oh god.
Actually, I did enjoy that though, because they had some fantastic chemistry when they were on screen together.
They did.
Like, for example, when that scene where they were both trying to force pull the lightsaber. Yeah. That was magic.
It was, and I also liked when they were in the hut and talking to one another. No, and they actually talked, because the fact that it was really human, because it was odd, because they were being honest with one another for some reason. I guess because they were connected by the Force.
Well, they were honest with one another, because I was thinking about this. Mm-hmm. Each of them had a Force vision where they saw them fighting side by side, right? Mm-hmm. So each of them took that to mean that this person is coming to my side. Yeah. So that was kind of, because remember when they meet Snoke, Rey is like, Kylo, we're going to end up fighting side by side, and then Kylo says that to her. It just didn't quite work out the way Rey expected it to.
Yeah, or that Kylo expected it to.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because the Force only showed that they were going to fight one another, everything else is a bit...
Yeah, fight with one another. Yeah. Everything else was a little bit, like, yeah, it was accurate, but...
interpretations and stuff to the, it's vague. But no, I do agree. But also now, of course, now we get to the character that we didn't see much in the last film, and that's Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker.
I really enjoyed him in this film because he basically hates himself. Not basically hates himself. He does hate himself at the first part of the film.
And I wonder how many years went by since the destruction of his temple and when he ran away. I wonder how many years that went by.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how old Kylo is supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know what the time frame is between the two.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do like his entire mentality and attitude. I thought to myself, okay, I think that's where they're going with this. Because I tell friends, look, Luke is going to feel like he needs to destroy the Jedi because the Jedi caused the dark side of the Sith. And I was right about that. That was one of my predictions I was accurate about. Not trying to pat myself on the back, but actually I am.
What do you mean?
Darth Vader was created because of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. That was his theory. And then Kylo Ren was created by Jedi.
And Darth Sidious came up basically under the Jedi's nose.
Mm-hmm. So because of what the Jedi did, is like the Jedi can be failed and all this stuff. So the Jedi has to end. In other words, they have to go. They have to go to the wayside. And this theme was echoing throughout what he was trying to teach Rey. Luke said, "Yes, I'm going to teach you 3 lessons, but I'm not going to teach you the ways of the Force. I'm going to tell you why the Jedi needs to end."
But part of what's interesting about that, though, was even though he said that the Force needs to end, that we need to have a new way of doing things, he's still kind of stuck to the old way of doing things. Because think about it. His solution when she was drawn to the dark side was to completely avoid it. Like, pretend it's not there. And she didn't defeat the dark side but pretended it wasn't there. She defeated the dark side within herself by
confronting it.
By confronting it and realizing it had nothing for her. Because she went to the hole that represented the dark side, and she went in that weird mirror cave thing,
looking for answers, and the dark side didn't give anything.
No, the dark side's answer was loneliness.
Yeah, which was interesting now that you think about it. It's like, how can the dark side give you something that you already have?
Exactly. So I found it interesting, even though he was like so against the Jedi, he was still kind of set in their ways.
Mm-hmm. And this goes back to the rhyming thing that we're talking about. That in Empire Strikes Back, Luke saw a vision of what he may become if he became Darkseid. He was tempted with power. Rey, it's like, Rey is like, well, what's the answers you seek? Yourself. It's like, okay, well, I've had myself my entire life. So.
Yeah, exactly. The answers you seek are within yourself. You can
find them, and then well, I've been asking myself this question my entire life. I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
So that's a really good turning on the head. Mm-hmm. And I really did like how. I also liked how they found a part on the island where there was this Jedi treehouse or something. I don't know what it was, like a small little camps or whatever you want to call it. That has like a tree or something. I don't know what it was, but they had They had like the ancient Jedi text in there, like some of the originals was on here. And I loved toward the end of the film when Rey left Luke was going to burn the whole thing down. And then suddenly here comes Yoda.
First off, I enjoyed that too, because it captured all of Yoda so well.
Oh yes, the walk, the laugh.
The walk, the laugh. Of course, Frank Oz did the voice.
Yeah, and how, it was a puppet?
Yep.
Yeah, and how he just like, it brought back that playful, naive, small puppet. And how he was like...
Well, I don't know if naive would be the right word.
No, well, he played the part of like an ignorant person.
He played the part of a naive person, but he was full of immense wisdom.
Oh, he definitely was. But I just saw his playfulness he had when he was like moving his legs back and forth.
And I also enjoyed how smart alecky was, because he's like, go ahead and destroy it. She has all she needs. Well, of course she has all she needs. She took the books with her.
Oh, you think so?
Yes. No, actually, the movie did show it.
Oh, really? I missed that. Okay. Yes. All right.
So by him saying destroy it, she have all she needs, she literally has what she needs, so you can destroy it.
Yeah. And he actually did it himself. He destroyed the thing himself.
Yeah. I didn't know Force Ghost could use the Force like that, though.
Well, obviously they do now. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the Force. It's a new territory now. But I love how Luke was saying like, but the books were in there, and he was like, turn pages they are. Like, well, not really. But I really loved Yoda's character went back to his old Shades character when he said to Luke that the greatest teacher is failure. Mm-hmm. That's the greatest teacher we have, and that's true, because when you try to learn something, every time you fail, you know that when you fail, it's like, oh well, I now know what I'm doing wrong, so now I can correct this thing to get it right again. Mm-hmm. And I love that line. I love that moment. That of course you had the Yoda's theme coming back. And I just love that entire moment because
this film had some incredible music. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, all of Star Wars does, but it played so well in this film. Yeah. And also, because there was so much of it and everything, it worked so well when there wasn't any.
Yeah, because there was one scene that didn't have music. This is probably the best scene in all Star Wars films.
Yes, this is the best scene.
Best moment.
I don't want to say the best scene because it's just like a little minute.
Yeah, but one of the best moments I've ever seen in Star Wars.
Yes,
and from a visual standpoint, like one of I think the best.
Not even just the visual standpoint, from a thematic standpoint. Mm-hmm.
Because in
the way she shot. Well,
before let's have some context. The context is that we go back to a scene where the Resistance is on a ship fleeing the rebellion. They're running out of the Empire, First Order. They're running out of fuel. And so what they decided to do was they decided to get everybody left in the fleet onto these shuttles and launch for a planet that was nearby that had an abandoned rebel base. That was the plan. The shuttles had cloaking devices, sensors that could disrupt this devices that could disrupt the sensors. So they're launching toward the planet. One person stayed behind. It was the Admiral with the purple hair.
Vice Admiral.
Vice Admiral with the purple hair. And what happened is that Finn and Rose got onto the ship, and they were trying to deactivate the hyperspace tracker that they had. And basically, they first of all discovered where the pods were and started destroying all the shuttles. And what she decided to do was the Vice Admiral took the ship, turned it around, and we heard that on the bridge of the First Order, they said, she's piloting the hyperspace, and I turned to Erica, and I knew exactly what she was planning to do. She was going to ram right through them. So I knew what was going to happen.
But it makes me wonder, why haven't they done that before?
Well, it's not exactly a tactic that you want to encourage your soldiers to do, to be honest.
I also wonder if it's a case where they don't think of using it like that.
Well,
like
it was a last resort thing, and it's like you have to understand that you have to power the ship yourself to launch it through, and it was really unexpected too. But it wasn't something that's like a legitimate tactic, because that's a lot of ships you're going to be wasting to destroy an entire fleet.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, it's not like practical from a strategic standpoint, but the thing is, like the minute that she entered into hyperspace, it split the big Star Destroyer in half and destroyed all these other fleets.
It wasn't a half, it was more like a 60-40.
Yeah, 60-40, yeah, still. But the entire sequence, everything went silent. And the entire shot stayed on that one shot with the hyperspace, the stars, the effects, blue, everything was just... And there's no music, no sound. It was just a perfect cinema moment. It was so beautiful, too. It was like, oh, it was great.
It really was. What things didn't you like about this film? I'm just going to ask you that.
The comedy.
The comedy?
The comedy, I felt the comedy was a lot of hit and miss.
I've had that same problem with a lot of films, though. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I understand they try to work in the comedy to make it, I guess, more appeal to all audiences and things like that. And in films where it deals with more heavy things, because in this film, if you think about the plot, it's like a really heavy subject.
Yeah.
The rebellion's down to, what is it, like 200 people by the end of this movie?
No, maybe a handful.
Oh yeah, not even that many by the end of the movie. Yeah. Like 20 people by the end of the movie. That's the rebellion.
That's the resistance, yeah.
So we've seen like hundreds upon hundreds of people slaughtered and this war, and then you have this tonally inconsistent comedy.
Yeah, especially from the character, especially from Luke. It's like there's one scene where it's like Luke says, "Okay, where are you from?" He says, "I'm from Nowhere." "Where are you from?" "I'm from Jakku." "Okay, that's Nowhere." I'm like, I don't know why that's there. You could have cut that easily. Yeah, you could have easily cut that. Right?
No, definitely.
And then the scene where Luke was like, reach out, and Rey actually reached out. I'm like, would she actually confuse that? Would she be confused by that command?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how that.
Well, truthfully, I will admit that was something I could see Yoda do to Luke.
That's true. I mean, I can imagine that too. I mean, I don't mind the slapping part, but at the same time, like, would Rey actually confuse the two?
I don't know.
Yeah, the comedy was hit. It was hit and miss for me.
I was glad they didn't say, "What is the Force, midichlorians?"
I was so afraid that they would say that too. I'm like, don't do this, don't do it.
Because I've always loved the beauty of the Force. I've always just found it beautiful that the Force binds everything, it connects it, and that you gain power by tapping into that primordial Force. There's something beautiful about it.
Yeah, and the midichlorians idea basically said, "Oh, you can only use this Force if you have this amount of,
bacteria
in your bloodstream." It's like, oh, that basically cuts so many people off to the idea of the Force. No. Which brings me to one of my main theories about this film. And you have a problem with this film. Main problem.
I have a lot of problems with this film, truthfully. I do. Just the good in this film was enough to save the bad in this film for me. Okay. That's almost like I did have some problems with this film. All with Rose. Just frankly, the Finn and Rose thing, that wasn't an interesting subplot to me at all.
Well, what happened is that when we go on back on the Resistance ship, they wanted to somehow stop the Imperials they discovered that the First Order was tracking them through hyperspace. So they had to shut down that tracking device. So they came up with a way to do it, but they didn't know how. So they contacted Maza Kanad. She was in the middle of a union dispute.
Which was another one of those stupid comedy moments.
Yeah, it was.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah. The entire thing was like, she's fighting, I don't know. Anyway, so she's told, well, there's this guy over here on this planet. Go get him, and he'll help you. So Finn and Rose got into a ship to go out to find this mission, or to find this person, to bring him back to deactivate the thing. and they find themselves on a planet with a casino.
Casino, a racetrack where they race some kind of weird deer or horse thing.
Yeah. And they get captured, and we tell a story about how Rose grew up on this place and took all the property and stuff, and we hear that they are selling this place. These people sell arms to the First Order. That's how they make their money. And then we find out that they also sold weapons to the Resistance too. Mm-hmm. And Finn was like, and I love that line that Guillermo del Toro
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro said to Finn, was like, look, there's no sides to join. Just live your life. Don't join any side. Be neutral. And that's what he's saying to Finn, which I thought was a good message for Finn, because that's what Finn is struggling with. Do I stay with the First Order? Do I stay with the Resistance? And he was being told, just go neutral. Mm-hmm. Which was the idea. So, you didn't like that, though, because they kept on coming back and forth.
And it just went on too long.
Okay.
Like, they spend like a good 10 minutes at the casino.
Okay.
And it's just, frankly, not interesting.
Well, they could easily have, I think they could easily just cut that down, to be honest.
They definitely could have cut it down, and just Finn and Rose just didn't work on screen together for me. I liked both of the characters, but I don't know what it was, that their dynamic just didn't work for me that well.
Mm-hmm. But I do have a theory about why it's in the film. Now, before I go into this theory, I want to make it clear that filmmakers have ideas, and they go with these ideas, and they try to execute these ideas. But just because they're going for an idea doesn't mean that it works. So there's a difference between intent and result. So
you're saying even though you may have saw something deeper in this scene, it doesn't mean it's a good scene.
It doesn't mean, yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean it's a good scene, or it means it's executed. Mm-hmm. But I think what was going on with the scene, I think the reason why the scene exists is because we hear a line with Luke saying, the Jedi does not own, or do not own the Force. They never owned the Force. Because implies the Sith and the Jedi were the only ones that there was a code, it was a group, and they were the only ones that were allowed access to it. And in order to have access to the Force, you have to be a Jedi or a Sith. You couldn't do it on your own, or you were considered to be outcast.
You know what that actually reminds me of too, though?
What?
The Protestant Reformation.
Oh, really?
Think about it.
Okay.
Like, prior to Martin Luther, the only way to contact God was by priests and things like that.
Exactly.
Martin Luther kind of changed by starting the Protestant Reformation. He kind of changed that. Sorry, I literally just thought of that.
That's fine, because it was great, and this goes along with what I was trying to say. The scene is supposed to be. We wanted to go back to Luke's scene because we wanted to hear what he meant by that. We wanted him to explain to us more about what he meant by the Force is now a monopoly. Well, what do we see in the upcoming scenes? We see Rose and Finn at a planet where the 1% owns all the wealth on that planet. They have control over all the wealth, and they're selling this to the highest bidder. It's kind of supposed to be a representation of the Jedi and the Sith. I know it's a stretch. I've been told it's a stretch. I get that.
It's definitely a stretch, and truthfully, it may be one of those unintended consequences things.
Maybe too.
It's like the filmmaker didn't even think about how it could be perceived that way.
Yeah.
Truthfully, to me, the only reason I saw it existing was because all throughout the movie they keep talking about hope. This spark of hope, this glimmer of hope. And in this movie, Finn and Rose are able to give the slave population on that planet that glimmer of hope. Because you see that at the end of the film, you see a young boy, and you see him wearing a resistance ring, and then all of a sudden you see him force pull a broom. That is the end of the film.
Yeah. Well, he holds up the broom like a lightsaber. Yeah. But it goes back to my theory, which is the minute he did that, and everything that was said, we saw this Rose and Finn escape a prison on a series of horses. They're tearing through the casino, thus destroying the establishment of the casino, which could be a visual representation of the Jedi and Sith establishment being destroyed at the same time. And at the end of the film, this kid finally has access to the Force, which symbolizes that everybody has access. There's no rules. You don't have to be a Jedi to be part of the Force. You can now just use the Force, which goes back to the idea of the midichlorians. Remember, if you have this much bacteria in your system, you can be a Force user. Well, that made everybody upset because everybody who loves Star Wars wants to potentially be a Jedi. Well, this movie says that now because the Jedi and the Sith establishment is destroyed. And I think that the casino scene was meant to show that relationship between the two, but through visual. I think that's one of the reasons why that scene exists.
It's still a stretch.
It's still a stretch. It probably not is very well executed, But it's like, that's when I think of the scene, it's like the idea is kind of the ideas are there. It does connect.
It does, but something else I have to complain about?
What?
All the random creatures that appeared in this movie.
Yeah, I like to call that the prequel, prequel plague. Well, not plague, but the prequel.
Actually, that works. Prequel plague, because of the alliteration, that does work.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like that. But you have the weird space nuns. I don't know. I can't remember what they were actually called. Mm-hmm. You have the porgs, which I was actually worried that they were going to have a larger role in the movies because in the trailers they're featured prominently. I was pleasantly surprised by that, even if still annoyed.
You know what I also like about it? When one of them was like on the scene and on the control panel, Chewbacca just shoot her away, like, enough of you.
No, I did enjoy that. I wish Chewbacca would have had more to do, though.
Yeah.
This is Chewbacca. Like, he lost his best friend. Give him some screen time, man.
Yeah, I understand.
And also, what was with the weird Luke milking that weird thing and getting green milk?
I don't know.
And why did he drink it with like this angry look on his face?
Like, oh yeah, green milk. Does the body good. Just like it's green, like my lightsaber. Ugh.
I really don't understand that.
I don't either. And it goes back to the idea. I understand the udders are not considered to be, bad things to show on TV. But it goes back to the episode 1 where Jar Jar Binks got that animal farting in his face. It's like it reminds me of those type of moments in the prequels.
It reminded me of the special editions of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Where George Lucas CG added all this random stuff that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Like, I understand though wanting to show Star Wars as a living, breathing universe with all these weird creatures that we could never have here on Earth. But do that by giving some non-humans some screen time. Like, I've never have understood like why all the main characters are humans, save Chewbacca.
Yeah, well, Empire Strikes Back didn't do this. Empire Strikes Back had one scene where you saw aliens, and that was the bounty hunters on the Star Destroyer, and then that was Cloud City. So they had that out, or they had a way to show all the creatures without it being in your face. I don't honestly think that, other than the casino scene, which would have been fine, with the casino scene would have been fine showcasing all these aliens. You could have done that way.
Yeah.
And in that case, you're done. All these other aliens here and there, you could have completely eliminated, and you could have patched it up better. The casino scene could have served perfectly for that alien aspect of it. But at the same time, I mean, what do you think of the ending of this film? Because this ending was pure Star Wars, like you said.
The ending was perfect. As I said, the entire last act was perfect. I loved the ending battle on Hoth. I loved the ending battle on not Hoth. It was meant to evoke Hoth.
It was, but at the same time, it was salt. I like that factor of salt. That soldier, I love that scene where the soldier's like, salt. It's like, oh, well, that works. Thank you, movie. I like that. I like that.
On IMDb, I think that character is actually called Soldier Salt.
But no, I did love it. But I
loved it too, just because of the beauty. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the red as the speeders are flying towards the AT-ATs.
Yeah, it was very artistic, absolutely.
This was Star Wars at its most beautiful. Frankly, I don't think Star Wars has ever been this beautiful before.
Yes, it does have those 2001 Space Odyssey moments in the sense that it was supposed to be a visual experience, unlike Blade Runner. But unlike the entire movie being a visual experience, they were able to make it a visual experience while incorporating into the action that was taking place.
I mean, even with the beautiful crystal foxes.
Oh, yeah.
I know I just complained about all the random creatures in this film. Mm-hmm. Now, those crystal foxes, I want one of those. I want a pet.
I do too, but they also serve the purpose. They help them escape from the base. And a lot of people complain, why would you build a base without an exit? Well, first things first, C-3PO said, got the map of the caves. That doesn't mean that there wasn't an interest. It was that all we know is that this is the only way in and out.
Yeah, exactly.
The movie explained that. And I want to go back to a video I saw about all this when it comes to criticism of a movie. There's 3 types of criticisms you can talk about when it comes to a movie. The first one is legitimate criticism. Pacing, plot, writing, things that everybody can say, yeah, I can see that. Second one is illegitimate criticism. Like, the movie never, why was this the only way out? Well, the movie clearly said that all we know is that this is the only way in and out. And then you have the nitpicking ones. Like, they didn't like this aspect. It was more of a personal thing. It was a personal taste. And no one cares about that as long as you make it clear that you're nitpicking and it's allowed.
Well, that's kind of my entire stick.
That is your entire thing. You nitpick here and that, but you also explain why you thought the movie didn't work in and out. And I feel like that aspect was nitpicking. You'll find a lot of people bring in illegitimate criticisms to movies like this.
As for this, I do have legitimate criticism of the pacing of the first half.
Of course.
Like, it was boring. It actually made the film boring. And the film...
It also distracted from the overall Luke and Rey and Finn. And not the Finn, but Kylo Ren. And that was the most interesting characters. And if you only focused on that, these other characters wouldn't have that much to do. I mean, unlike Empire Strikes Back, you actually had a purpose for them doing what they're doing. It was a chase scene. They were trying to get away. And that upped the tension a bit. In this film... I mean, he didn't have much for them to do. Yeah. I think it would have been better if they just got to the planet, found the person, get back. That's it. Cut down the scenes a couple. You could have easily have saved off 20 minutes from this film.
No, you easily could have, and I'm still disappointed by Captain Phasma.
Oh,
because that's such a cool costume. Gwendolyn Christie is so awesome, and then she's probably dead. She's not really been useful. I don't really see a reason they would bring her back.
Yeah.
So I don't imagine she's dead.
But at the same time, one of the best scenes is Luke Skywalker coming back in the end.
That was my favorite. Just first off, we did complain about some of the humor in this film.
Yeah.
But the humor there actually worked.
Yeah.
Like he uses this force projection.
And we did, but we didn't know at the time. That's the thing.
Yeah, we did it. And then he gets this barrage of AT-ATs and everything in 10,000 shots. And you see him just standing there and he dusts his shirt off. And that's awesome.
Mm-hmm, because we thought that he did something with the Force. But the thing that was interesting is that I noticed small little things like, wait, he cut his hair, he's wearing a different costume, and he's not leaving footprints on the sock. At this point, we know that there was a trail that was left by the stove.
Well, that was the reason they showed that trail being left. It was it was supposed to signify that, hey, something's not right here.
Exactly. And the thing that is also not right is the fact that he's using a blue lightsaber. Which is his old blue lightsaber. Well, why's that a big deal? Because in a previous scene, we saw that Kylo and Rey broke Luke's lightsaber. We didn't get that.
Yeah.
We didn't get that. Well, it's we missed it.
It's things you don't think about while it's happening because you're like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And then after the scene ends, you're like, wait, this... Yeah, I should have noticed that.
Yeah, it's all the pieces were there. They were spelling it out for you, and you're like, what the fuck?
But what makes it really cool, though, is the fact that a lot of the people wouldn't have seen it actually be a force projection. Mm-hmm. They will have seen Luke Skywalker pull off this amazing feat of heroism, force using, everything.
Yeah.
It will have kindled that hope that they were talking about so much throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that, and I also like the fact that when he walked up to C-3PO, C-3PO could have seen him, and he winked to C-3PO. I like that one. And I also love the part where he was reunited with Princess Leia.
Now that scene actually had me tearing up a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
It did because
just because it was perfect. It was incidentally perfect. Because as I've already said, this film was all filmed with a still alive Carrie Fisher. And then the last thing he says to her is, "People are never really gone." It's incidentally poetry. That is beautiful.
It is. There was one more scene that we didn't talk about, and that was a lightsaber scene.
But I know the scene you're talking about. It's the scene where after she kills Snoke, Snoke's personal guards start attacking them.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a lot of lightsaber battles in this movie. I was hoping for an awesome Kylo-Luke lightsaber battle at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
We didn't get that. But what we did get was to see Kylo and Rey, two sides of the Force, team up against these awesome royal guards.
Yeah, and those
they had some really clever
weapons.
Yeah.
There's one that could rip that Rey was using. He's just like, boom, boom, like just bringing Rey forward. And Rey, at one point, Rey realized, wait, I can get out of this by dropping the lightsaber. And just there's a lot of creative stuff in this.
There was, and when Rey threw the lightsaber to Kylo,
and Kylo just ignited it and ignited, and then ignited. Yeah,
that was objectively awesome.
Yes, it was. Man, we talk about this movie to death.
We did. You know what's kind of bringing me some joy, though?
What?
It's seeing a lot of these longtime Star Wars fans just lose their crap.
Really? Why?
I don't know. Sometimes Star Wars fans kind of hate Star Wars.
I found the perfect way to describe it. I don't know how. It's like, it feels like they don't know what they love about Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like they don't know what they want. they really don't know. A lot of the fans don't know what they want from a Star Wars film. They say they do, but when they got something, we want something more like the original. Well, we got Episode 7. That was too much like the original. We want something different. Well, this is too different, so we can't have that either. It's like, let's ruin Star Wars. Like, but you haven't defined what you liked about Star Wars.
Were there any complaints we haven't talked about? I think we've addressed most of the complaints.
Yeah, I think we did address most of the complaints.
I've even agreed with a couple of them. Some of them are legitimate complaints.
Yeah, it goes back to the objective complaints we talked about. Yeah.
And then some of them are Star Wars fans wanting Star Wars to stay within the little box.
Yeah, and this movie is like, we can't do that if we're going to make more Star Wars films.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the media said that in the Rogue One review. They said that, well, you can't do much with this universe the way that it's set up. Because it's a story about good versus evil. There's only so many times you can tell that story. And this film's like, yeah, we get that. That's why we're tossing away the old lightsaber and moving on towards something new. And the thing I loved, the ending scene I loved about this movie is when Luke died.
First off, I love how Luke died. Again, this film was poetry. Actually, as you said, George Lucas even said that.
It rhymes.
He wanted it to rhyme, be like poetry. And boy, did he get his wish for this film.
Yeah.
Because, as you remember, the first times we see Luke, we see him on Tatooine staring at the multiple suns, just gazing off into the horizon.
And that's so many people's favorite moment in the Star Wars film.
Because it's such a beautiful moment, and we've all kind of been there, looking off, wondering what the future holds for us.
It's also the beginning of his journey, because right after that scene, he starts looking for R2-D2, which basically starts everything for him.
And then the movie ends. The Force projection was, frankly, the most powerful display of Force prowess we've ever seen in any movie.
Yeah.
He projected himself across galaxies. Because
planets, just systems. Yeah.
Well, because the Force Awakens established how far he is away from everything. He's out there in basically the middle of nowhere in space.
Yeah.
So the fact that he projected himself so far extinguished a large amount of power. So the last thing we see is him on this stone with these suns glaring down, and we see him staring off into the horizon with these suns, it being sunset.
Two suns, yeah.
Yeah, it's even sunset. We see him, his robes just fall.
And him disappear like Yoda.
Yep, signifying he became one with the Force. Which, again, I just find that beautiful.
Yeah, because his journey started with him looking out at the sunset, and he died looking out at the sunset.
Yeah.
At peace.
Yep.
At the time, it's symmetry, and it's all poetic, like we said.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, there's a lot of things I love about this film, a lot of things bad not to, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. The theory I presented, yes, it is a stretch, but I think that because I understand what they're going for, it kind of makes that scene a bit less, egregious to me, less boring to me.
I still get what you're saying with that. It just may not work for me, even with that.
I mean, that's fine. But I do think that that's what potentially that's a stretch. I get that.
I do want to watch it again, though. I really do. I think I will probably appreciate it more on a second viewing. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters because there's so many good movies to see in theaters. Yeah, I don't know if I can justify seeing it again, but I do want to watch it again. I want to watch it 5 more times.
Yes. Do you know what else to be done multiple times?
What?
Listening to these episodes multiple times, which we'll have a lot of in the future, but ours have to end today.
That was a forced seg. I am ashamed.
A forced seg?
I am ashamed of you.
A forced seg? A force? Seg?
Oh, I didn't even get that. Shut up.
So we have to go. But what's on store for next week?
Next week, I'm going to be talking about a movie I've never seen before. It's a remake of The Christmas Carol, one of the most famous Christmas stories of all time.
A remake or a remastered or a remix? I don't know what to call it.
It's a reimagining.
Reimagining, thank you. That's the right word for it. It's called
Scrooged.
With Bill Murray. Yeah, you haven't seen this film, have you?
I have not. I've seen a lot of other Christmas carols. I just watched The Muppet Christmas Carol last week for the first time.
It was very lovely, wasn't it?
No, it was. Michael Caine.
Oh yeah, Michael Caine.
Of course I'm familiar with the Christmas Carol story, but I can't wait to talk about what Bill Murray brings to the table.
It's a good film. It's good. It's funny. It has some funny parts. But until then, I'm Joseph Collins.
I'm Paul Collins.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.